The first time Mara Chen posted as at Elite Watches official. She had exactly $47 in her checking account and 3 days until rent was due. She sat in her cramped studio apartment in Queens, staring at the glossy photograph of a watch that cost more than her annual salary. The timepiece gleamed against black velvet, each diamond catching light like captured stars. Her assignment was simple: make people care about luxury watches on social media. Make them desire something they would never touch, never wear, never afford. Mara had answered the job listing 2 weeks earlier. The posting sought a freelance social media manager for a high-end watch company. Work remotely. Remain anonymous. Report only to the company's digital consultant. Never contact the CEO directly. The pay was exceptional, enough to finally stop choosing between groceries and electricity. She had submitted her portfolio, a collection of campaigns she had created for small businesses while juggling 3 part-time jobs and community college classes. The acceptance email arrived within hours. No interview, no video call, just a contract, a hefty first payment, and access to Elite Watches' social media accounts. Now, 3 months later, those accounts had transformed. Mara did not just post product shots. She told stories. She found the retired firefighter who saved for 2 years to buy his dream watch. She showcased the single mother who wore her grandmother's vintage Elite timepiece to her medical school graduation. She created content that made luxury feel human, attainable not in price but in aspiration. The follower count exploded. Engagement rates tripled. Sales inquiries flooded the company inbox. And Mara remained completely anonymous. She never used her real name. Her contact at the company, a woman named Patricia who handled logistics, knew her only as M. Chen. All communication happened through encrypted messaging apps. Her payments arrived like clockwork, deposited into her account from a corporate entity she never questioned. It was perfect. It was safe. It was exactly what she needed. Until the day Alexander Rothschild decided he wanted to know who was behind his brand's sudden social media success. Alexander stood in his corner office, 70 floors above Manhattan, staring at his phone. The latest post from Elite Watches showed a young couple at a beach, the man checking his watch as the sun set behind them. The caption read, "Time stops for no one. Make every second count with someone who matters." It had 50,000 likes in 2 hours. "Patricia," he said into his intercom, "who writes our social media content?" His assistant's voice crackled back, "We have a freelance manager, very talented. The numbers speak for themselves." "I want to meet them." A pause. "Sir, the contractor prefers to work remotely." "It's in the contract." "Then set up a video call." "The contract specifies anonymity, no direct contact with company executives." Alexander frowned. In his 12 years running Elite Watches, he had never encountered an employee who refused to meet him. He had built his father's moderate watch business into a billion-dollar empire through personal connection, through understanding every aspect of his brand. This anonymous social media presence unsettled him. "Who negotiated this contract?" he asked. "You did, sir, 3 months ago. You said you wanted results, not politics. You approved the terms." He vaguely remembered. It had been during the merger talks, when he was juggling acquisition lawyers and board meetings. He had delegated the social media hire to his digital team with one instruction: fix it. They had certainly fixed it. "Fine," he said, "but I want reports, weekly updates. I want to understand the strategy." The contractor submits monthly analytics reports. "I want more than numbers. I want to understand the thinking behind the content. Patricia hesitated. I can request additional communication. Alexander looked at his phone again, at the beach couple, at the way the light caught the watch face. Something about the post felt personal, intimate. It made expensive metal and jewels feel like they mattered, like they meant something beyond status symbols. Do that, he said. The email from Patricia arrived while Mara was grocery shopping. She read it standing in the produce aisle, her cart containing exactly $23 worth of carefully calculated nutrition. Mr. Rothschild requests weekly strategy calls to discuss content direction. Please provide availability for video meetings. Mara's stomach dropped. Video meetings meant showing her face. Strategy calls meant direct interaction with the CEO. The anonymity that made this job possible would evaporate. She typed back quickly. Per my contract, I work remotely and independently. I'm happy to provide detailed written strategy reports, but video calls were not part of our agreement. She hit send and tried to focus on choosing between apples and oranges. Her phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Mr. Rothschild insists. He wants to better understand the voice behind the brand. This is non-negotiable. Mara stood frozen, holding a bag of apples she could not afford. The job had changed everything. She had paid off her credit cards. She had bought actual groceries instead of ramen. She was saving for a better apartment, maybe even finishing her degree. But video calls with a billionaire CEO, that was not part of the plan. She typed, I prefer to let my work speak for itself. If Mr. Rothschild is unsatisfied with the results, I understand. Otherwise, I'd like to maintain our current arrangement. The response took 5 minutes. Mara had moved to the checkout line when her phone buzzed. The message was not from Patricia. It was from an unknown number. Miss Chen, this is Alexander Rothschild. Patricia gave me your number under protest, and I apologize for the intrusion. I'm not unsatisfied with your work. Quite the opposite. You've transformed my brand in ways I didn't think possible. I don't want to disrupt your process or make you uncomfortable. But I built this company from the ground up, and I need to understand every aspect of it. Can we compromise? Perhaps a phone call. Just voice, no video. I want to hear the thinking behind what you do. I want to understand the person who understands my customers better than I do. Mara read the message 3 times. His tone was different than she expected. Not demanding, almost respectful. She had imagined billionaire CEOs as imperious and titled. This message felt genuine. She paid for her groceries, walked to her apartment, and sat on her second-hand couch for 20 minutes before responding. A phone call is acceptable. Thursdays at 6 p.m. work for me. His response came immediately. Perfect. I'll call tomorrow. Mara spent the next 24 hours preparing. She made notes on every campaign, every strategy decision, every piece of content. She reviewed 3 months of analytics. She was ready to justify every post, every caption, every choice. When her phone rang at exactly 6 p.m., she answered with her most professional voice. This is Mara Chen. Alexander Rothschild, thank you for making time. His voice surprised her. Deep but not aggressive, warm without being familiar. She had expected corporate polish. Instead, he sounded like he was settling into a conversation, not conducting a business interrogation. Of course, she said. I appreciate your flexibility with the video requirement. I appreciate your discretion with my brand. The numbers are impressive, but that's not why I wanted to talk. I want to understand your approach. Take the post from yesterday, the couple on the beach. Why that image? Why that caption? Mara relaxed slightly. This she could discuss. Luxury watches are status symbols, but that's not why people really buy them. They buy them to mark moments. Graduations, promotions, weddings. The beach couple worked because it reminded people that time is precious. The watch becomes a symbol of choosing to spend your limited time with people who matter. You made a $15,000 watch feel romantic. I made it feel meaningful. Romance was just the vehicle. She heard him laugh, a genuine sound. You're good at this. How long have you been in marketing? I'm not. Not formally. I studied communications at community college before I had to take a break for financial reasons. I've been doing freelance social media for small businesses for 3 years. And now you're running social media for $1 billion watch company. Now I'm trying not to screw up social media for $1 billion watch company. He laughed again. You're doing more than not screwing up. Do you know our sales are up 28% since you started? Our flagship store in Manhattan has people coming in asking about watches they saw on Instagram. You've changed how people perceive the brand. Mara felt warmth spread through her chest. She had seen the analytics, but hearing the real-world impact felt different. That's amazing. I'm glad it's working. Tell me about the firefighter post, the one from last month. They talked for 90 minutes. Alexander asked about specific posts, about her research process, about how she found the real customers she featured. Mara found herself relaxing, speaking freely about storytelling and emotional connection, and building community around luxury goods. When the call finally ended, she sat in her apartment feeling strangely energized. Alexander Rothschild was nothing like she expected. He asked good questions. He listened. He understood what she was trying to do. Same time next week, he had asked before hanging up. Same time next week, she had agreed. The weekly calls became the highlight of Alexander's work week. He told himself it was about understanding his brand better, about staying connected to the marketing that was driving unprecedented growth. But by the third call, he knew he was lying to himself. He liked talking to Mara Chen. She was sharp and funny and unpretentious. She talked about luxury goods with none of the reverence his usual circle displayed. To her, a $15,000 watch was a storytelling device, not a status symbol. She understood his customers because she was not one of them. She saw his products from the outside, which gave her a perspective he could never have. Tell me something, he said during their fourth call. Why did you want the anonymity clause in your contract? She was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I was worried about being taken seriously. I don't have a fancy degree or agency experience. I'm just a freelancer from Queens trying to make rent. If you had interviewed me in person, seen my apartment, my background, you might have dismissed me before seeing my work. I wouldn't have. You say that now because the numbers are good. But would you have hired a 24-year-old college dropout with no corporate experience to represent your billion-dollar brand? He wanted to say yes. He wanted to believe he would have seen her talent regardless, but she was probably right. His hiring team would have filtered her out before her resume reached his desk. The anonymity protected both of us, Mara continued. You got results without bias. I got a chance I would never have gotten otherwise. And now, Alexander asked, do you still need the protection? I don't know why. I'd like to meet you in person, not as CEO to contractor, just as two people who have been talking every week for a month, coffee. Somewhere public and casual, no expectations. The silence stretched long enough that Alexander worried she had hung up. Mr. Rothschild, she finally said. Alexander, please. Alexander. I appreciate these calls, I really do. But meeting in person changes things. Right now, I'm just a voice, an idea. If we meet, you'll see that I'm nobody special. Just a regular person who happens to be good at social media. I think the mystery serves us both better. What if I don't want mystery? What if I want to buy coffee for the person who saved my brand? Your brand didn't need saving. It needed better storytelling. And I can do that just as well from my apartment in Queens. She was turning him down. Women did not turn Alexander Rothschild down. Not because he was entitled or cruel, but because his world was full of people who wanted things from him. Access, money, status, connection. Mara Chen wanted none of it. Okay, he said. But the offer stands. Whenever you change your mind. I won't, but thank you. After the call ended, Alexander sat in his office long after his staff went home. The city glittered below him. Millions of people living lives he would never understand. Somewhere in Queens, Mara Chen was sitting in an apartment he could not imagine, creating content that made his products feel human. He wanted to know her, really know her. Not just her voice on the phone, but her expressions, her gestures, the way she looked when she talked about storytelling. It was unprofessional. It was inappropriate. She was a contractor. He was her client. But when he closed his eyes, he heard her laugh, the way it bubbled up when he said something unexpectedly funny. He thought about her casual mention of choosing community college for financial reasons, of taking a break from education because she could not afford it. His world was so different from hers that they might as well live on separate planets. And yet, these Thursday calls felt like the realest conversations he had all week. Mara knew she was in trouble the moment she started looking forward to Thursdays. The calls had evolved beyond work discussions. Alexander asked about her life. She asked about his. She learned that he had inherited elite watches from his father, who had built it from a single store in Manhattan. Alexander had transformed it into a global brand, but the pressure was constant. Every decision affected hundreds of employees, thousands of retailers, millions in revenue. Do you ever just want to walk away? Mara asked during their 7th call. Do something simple. Every day, Alexander admitted. But then I think about my father. He died 5 years ago. He trusted me with his legacy. I can't just walk away because it's hard. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's also exhilarating. Building something, growing it, watching it succeed, there's nothing like it. He paused. What about you? What do you want? Beyond freelance social media work. Mara looked around her tiny apartment. I want to finish my degree. Maybe work for a nonprofit, help organizations that actually make a difference tell their stories. I want to not check my bank account before buying groceries. I want to feel secure. You're brilliant at what you do. You could work anywhere. Brilliance doesn't pay rent. Contracts do. And most companies want to see credentials I don't have. This company doesn't. This company got me by accident. The best things often happen by accident. Something in his tone made Mara's breath catch. The conversation had shifted into dangerous territory. This was not CEO and contractor anymore. This was something else, something that made her heart race when she saw his name on her phone. I should go, she said quickly. Same time next week. Mara, wait, I want to ask you something. Alexander, don't. You don't know what I'm going to say. I do, and the answer is no. We have a good thing here. Let's not complicate it. She hung up before he could respond. For the next week, Mara threw herself into work. She created a campaign around heirloom watches, interviewing 3 generations of a family who had passed down an elite watch through 60 years. She wrote about legacy and time and family. The content was beautiful, heartfelt, and completely detached from her own feelings. When Thursday came, she considered not answering. She held her phone, watching it ring, knowing that picking up would lead somewhere she could not afford to go. She answered. "I'm sorry," Alexander said immediately. "I overstepped last week. You set a boundary and I pushed against it. That wasn't fair." Mara exhaled. "Thank you, I appreciate that. Can we just talk like usual? I miss our conversations." They talked for 2 hours. About work, about life, about everything except the tension that crackled between them. When the call ended, Mara felt relief and disappointment in equal measure. This continued for 3 more weeks. Thursday calls, careful conversations, both of them dancing around what was happening between them. Then Patricia called on a Tuesday afternoon. "Mara, we have a situation. Elite Watches is launching a new collection in 4 weeks. It's our biggest product launch in 5 years. Mr. Rothschild wants to build the entire marketing campaign around social media storytelling." "Your storytelling specifically?" "Okay," Mara said slowly. "What do you need?" "Everything. Content strategy, influencer partnerships, user-generated campaign concepts, and Mr. Rothschild wants you at the launch event. He wants you to meet the press, explain the social strategy, be the face of this campaign." "No, that's not possible." "Mara, this is huge. The board is betting on this launch. Mr. Rothschild specifically requested you. He says you understand the brand better than anyone. I can do the strategy remotely. I can create all the content. But I'm not doing press events. That wasn't part of my contract. The contract can be amended. The compensation for this would be substantial." Mara closed her eyes. She knew where this was going. Alexander was forcing her hand, making in-person involvement mandatory. Part of her was angry. Part of her understood. A launch this big required all hands on deck. "Let me think about it," she said. "We need an answer by Friday. The event is in New York, all expenses covered plus a significant bonus. Please consider it." After Patricia hung up, Mara stared at her phone. Alexander's personal number was saved in her contacts. She could call him right now, tell him this was manipulative and unfair. But was it? He was asking his key marketing person to be present for the most important launch in years. That was reasonable. She was the one making it complicated. Her phone rang. "Alexander." "Before you yell at me," he said when she answered, "let me explain." "I'm listening." "This launch is critical. I'm not exaggerating. We've invested $8 million in development. The entire company's trajectory for the next 5 years depends on this collection succeeding. I need the best people on this project. You're the best. I'm not asking you to come to New York because I want to meet you, although I do. I'm asking because I need you. The brand needs you. You're putting me in an impossible position." "Why is it impossible?" "Come to New York, help with the launch, and go back to Queens. If you want to remain professional and distant, I'll respect that. But I need you here." Mara heard the stress in his voice. This was not manipulation. This was desperation. She thought about the past 4 months, about how the job had changed her life. Alexander had taken a chance on an anonymous freelancer with no credentials. He had trusted her with his family's legacy. Maybe she owed him this. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll come to the launch." "Thank you, Mara, truly thank you. One condition. We keep things professional, no coffee dates, no personal conversations, just work. Whatever you need." She hung up and immediately questioned her decision. She was going to meet Alexander Rothschild in person, the man whose voice made her smile, the man she thought about far too often, the billionaire CEO who existed in a completely different world. This was a terrible idea. Alexander stood in the lobby of Elite Watch's Manhattan headquarters, checking his watch for the fifth time in 3 minutes. Mara was supposed to arrive at 10 a.m. for the strategy meeting. It was 9:57. He had no idea what she looked like. In his mind, he had constructed a dozen different versions. Tall, short, bold, reserved. None of his imaginings prepared him for the real thing. At exactly 10 a.m., the elevator doors opened. A young woman stepped out, looking around the lobby with wide eyes. She was petite, maybe 5'3", with long dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore jeans, a simple blue sweater and sneakers. She carried a battered laptop bag covered in pins from coffee shops and bookstores. She looked terrified. "Mara," Alexander said, approaching her. She turned and he forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful, but not in the polished way of the women in his usual social circle. Her beauty was understated, natural. No makeup that he could detect. No designer clothes. Just clear skin, dark eyes that took in everything, and an expression that suggested she was considering bolting for the elevator. "Alexander," she said. Her voice was exactly as he remembered, but hearing it come from an actual person instead of a phone was jarring and wonderful. "Thank you for coming. I know this wasn't easy for you. Your office is incredible. I Googled the building. The rent on this floor probably costs more than my entire apartment complex," he laughed. "Probably. Come on, the strategy meeting is upstairs. It's just my core team. Patricia, James from sales, and Rebecca from product development. Everyone's excited to meet you." She followed him to the elevator, clutching her laptop bag. Alexander pressed the button for the 70th floor and tried not to stare at her. In person, Mara was more captivating than any voice on a phone. She moved with efficiency, every gesture purposeful. She looked at his office building the way most people looked at museums, taking in details with genuine interest. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified?" "I'm about to pitch strategy to people who probably have MBAs from schools I could never afford." "You're about to pitch strategy to people who couldn't do what you do if their lives depended on it. Credentials are just paper. Talent is rare." She glanced at him. "Do you actually believe that, or are you just being nice?" "I built $1 billion company by recognizing talent wherever I found it. I believe it." The meeting room was glass and chrome, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan stretched out below. Mara set her laptop on the conference table and took a breath. Patricia, James, and Rebecca filed in, greeting her warmly. They knew her only as the genius behind the social media transformation. They had no idea Alexander had been talking to her every Thursday for 3 months. "All right," Mara said, opening her laptop. "Let's talk about how we're going to make this launch unforgettable." For the next 2 hours, Alexander watched Mara work. She presented a comprehensive campaign that wove together influencer partnerships, user-generated content, and emotional storytelling. She had created mock-ups of posts, drafted caption templates, and even identified 12 micro-influencers whose audiences aligned perfectly with Elite Watch's target demographics. She was confident, articulate, and brilliant. This was not the nervous woman from the lobby. This was someone in complete control of her expertise. "The key is authenticity," Mara explained. "We're not selling watches. We're selling moments. Every post should make people feel something. Nostalgia, aspiration, love, pride. The watch is just the vessel for those emotions." James, the sales director, leaned forward. "This is exactly what we need. Mara, would you consider coming on full-time?" This campaign is incredible, but imagine what you could do with more resources and support. Mara's eyes flicked to Alexander. I appreciate the offer, but I prefer freelance work. We could make it worth your while, Rebecca added. Whatever you're making now, we double it. It's not about money. I like the flexibility of freelancing. Alexander said nothing. He watched Mara deflect the offers, saw her discomfort at being the center of attention. She wanted to disappear behind the work, remain the voice without a face. Coming here had cost her more than he realized. After the meeting ended, Alexander walked Mara to the elevator. You were amazing in there. The team loves you. The team loves the results. They don't know me. I know you. The words came out before he could stop them. Mara pressed the elevator button. You know, a voice on the phone, that's not the same thing. Then let me know more. Have dinner with me, tonight, just dinner. 2 people talking like we do every Thursday but in person. The elevator doors opened. Mara stepped inside, then turned to face him. I can't. You're my client. This is already complicated enough. What if you weren't my client anymore? What if you worked independently and I was just a guy who wanted to take you to dinner? But you're not just a guy. You're a billionaire CEO and I'm a college dropout from Queens. We live in different worlds. So what? I like your world. I like talking to you. I like that you don't care about my money or my title. You see me, not what I represent. The elevator doors started to close. Alexander put his hand out, stopping them. One dinner, he said. If it's awful, we go back to phone calls and professional distance. If it's nice, maybe we do it again. No pressure. No expectations. Mara looked at him for a long moment. You don't give up, do you? Not when something matters. Why do I matter? You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brilliant and kind and funny. I know you care about storytelling because you want to help people, not just sell products. I know you make me laugh and think and question things I took for granted. That's enough to want dinner. She sighed. One dinner. Somewhere casual, no fancy restaurants, I'm not dressing up. Alexander grinned. Deal, I'll pick you up at 7. I'll meet you there. Text me the address. She let the elevator doors close, and Alexander stood in the hallway feeling like he had just won something important. Mara changed clothes 4 times before settling on jeans and a nicer sweater than the one she wore to the meeting. She told herself this was just dinner. A casual meal between 2 people who worked together. It meant nothing. She was lying to herself spectacularly. The restaurant Alexander chose was a small Italian place in Greenwich Village, the kind with checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Nothing fancy, nothing pretentious. Mara relaxed slightly when she walked in and saw him waiting at a corner table, wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt. No suit, no power tie, just Alexander, looking nervous and hopeful. You look beautiful, he said when she sat down. I look the same as I did this morning. I know, beautiful. Mara felt her cheeks warm. You're very direct. I've spent 3 months talking to you on the phone, wishing I could see your face. Now I can. Forgive me for appreciating it. They ordered wine and pasta. The conversation flowed like their Thursday calls, easy and natural. Alexander asked about her childhood in Queens, her parents who immigrated from Taiwan before she was born, her decision to study communications. I wanted to help nonprofits tell their stories, Mara explained. I saw so many organizations doing incredible work but terrible marketing. I thought if I could bridge that gap, I could make a real difference. Then my mom got sick. Medical bills buried us. I left school to work full-time and the nonprofit dream went on hold. Is your mom okay now? She's in remission, 2 years clear, but the debt remains. I'm still digging out. Alexander reached across the table, his hand covering hers. I'm sorry. That's a lot for someone your age to carry. His hand was warm, solid. Mara looked at their joined hands and felt something shift. This was not just attraction. This was connection, the kind that made her want to tell him everything, share the parts of herself she usually kept hidden. What about you? She asked. You inherited a company at what, 25? 26. My father had a heart attack at his desk. One day he was here, the next day I was running elite watches with no preparation and no idea what I was doing. I made mistakes. Big ones. Nearly bankrupted the company twice in the first year, but I learned, adapted, and somehow kept his legacy alive. That's incredible pressure. It was, it still is, but I had no choice. The company employed 200 people back then. They depended on me figuring it out, so I did. You're very brave, Alexander smiled. You think running a company is brave. You left school to save your family. You built a career from scratch with no connections or resources. That's brave. They talked through dinner, through dessert, through coffee. The restaurant staff started cleaning tables around them, and Mara realized they had been there for 3 hours. I should go, she said reluctantly. I have a train to catch back to Queens. Let me drive you home. You don't have to do that. I want to. Alexander's car was waiting outside, a sleek black sedan with a driver. Mara slid into the leather seat and tried not to feel overwhelmed. This was his normal. Drivers and expensive cars and Italian dinners in Greenwich Village. Her normal was subway rides and takeout containers. Tell me what you're thinking, Alexander said as the car moved through Manhattan traffic. I'm thinking this is surreal. A month ago, you were a voice on the phone. Now we're having dinner and you're driving me home. It feels like I stepped into someone else's life. Does it feel good or bad? I don't know yet. Both, maybe. They drove in comfortable silence until the car pulled up outside Mara's apartment building. She looked at the chipped paint, the flickering streetlight, the overflowing dumpster on the corner. This was her world. Small, unglamorous, and infinitely far from his. Thank you for dinner, she said. It was lovely. Can I see you again, not as client and contractor, as this, us? Alexander, I don't know if there can be an us. Our lives are too different. So we'll bridge the difference. Mara, I haven't felt this way in years, maybe ever. You make me want to be more than just the guy running his father's company. You make me want to be someone worth knowing. You already are worth knowing. Then know me, let me know you, see what happens. Mara looked at him, at his earnest expression, at the hope in his eyes. Every practical part of her brain screamed that this was a bad idea. But her heart, traitorous thing that it was, wanted to say yes. I'm going back to Queens after the launch, she said. Back to my normal life. You'll go back to your office in the sky. This can't work. What if I come to Queens? You would hate Queens. Let me decide that. Give me a chance, Mara. Give us a chance. She opened the car door. I need to think. The launch is in 3 weeks. Let's get through that first. Then we can figure out what this is. Fair enough. But for the record, I already know what this is. What is it? The beginning of something important. Mara climbed out of the car before she could do something foolish like kiss him. She walked into her building without looking back, knowing if she did, she would change her mind about everything. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Mara worked 16-hour days creating content, coordinating with influencers, and managing the launch campaign. She and Alexander talked every day, sometimes about work, sometimes about nothing at all. He texted her good morning messages. She sent him funny memes. They were building something, brick by brick, despite the walls they both kept trying to erect. The night before the launch, Mara could not sleep. She lay in her apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the event tomorrow. Elite Watches had rented out a gallery in Soho. 300 guests, press from every major publication. And Mara, standing next to Alexander, explaining her social media strategy to the world. Her phone buzzed. Alexander, can't sleep either, want to talk, she called him. Nervous about tomorrow. Terrified, you? Beyond terrified. What if the campaign flops? What if nobody cares? Impossible. You've created something incredible. The pre-launch engagement numbers are through the roof. People are already talking about the collection and we haven't even unveiled it yet. You did that. We did that. This is your company, your vision. I just helped tell the story. Mara, you are the story. You turned luxury watches into emotional experiences. You made people care about time itself. That's magic. She smiled into the phone. You're good for my ego. I'm just honest. Listen, whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. Meeting you changed everything for me, not just the business. Me. You made me remember why I loved this company. You made me excited about work again. You made me feel things I thought I was too busy or too old to feel. You're 38. You're not old. I feel old most days. But not when I'm talking to you. With you, I feel alive. Mara's breath caught. Alexander, don't. Don't what? Tell you the truth. I'm falling for you, Mara. I tried not to. I know it's complicated and probably inappropriate, but I can't help it. You're brilliant and beautiful, and every conversation with you is the best part of my day. I'm not beautiful. I'm ordinary. You could have anyone. I don't want anyone, I want you. Tears pricked Mara's eyes. Nobody had ever talked to her like this, like she was precious. Like she mattered beyond what she could do for them. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared of wanting this and losing it. I'm scared that you'll wake up one day and realize I don't fit in your world. I'm scared of getting hurt. I'm scared too, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. Come to the launch tomorrow, stand next to me, let the world see us together, then we'll figure out the rest. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The gallery was packed when Mara arrived. Waiters circulated with champagne. Journalists clustered around the display cases, showcasing the new collection. The watches gleamed under strategic lighting, each piece a masterwork of engineering and design. Alexander stood near the entrance, talking to a group of board members. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His dark hair was styled. His presence commanded the room. He looked every inch the billionaire CEO. Then he saw her, and his entire face transformed. He excused himself from the conversation and crossed the room in quick strides. You came, he said. I promised I would. You look stunning. Mara glanced down at her simple black dress, borrowed from her roommate. I look acceptable. You look stunning, he repeated firmly. Ready for this? No, but let's do it anyway. Alexander took her hand, his fingers lacing through hers, and led her to the small stage at the front of the gallery. The crowd quieted as he approached the microphone. Thank you all for coming, Alexander began. Tonight, we're launching the Horizon collection, 5 years in development and the most technically advanced watches Elite has ever created. But technical specifications don't sell watches. Stories do. Emotions do. That's why I want to introduce you to the person responsible for transforming how the world sees Elite watches. Mara Chen, our social media strategist and the voice behind our brand. The crowd applauded politely. Mara stepped forward, her heart hammering. Thank you, Alexander. When I started working with Elite Watches 6 months ago, I had one goal: make people feel something. Luxury can be cold, aspirational to the point of alienating. I wanted to change that. I wanted people to see these watches as more than metal and jewels. I wanted them to see time itself as precious, worth marking, worth celebrating. Every post, every story, every campaign was designed to remind people that time stops for no one. What we do with our time defines us. The Horizon collection represents that philosophy. These watches are for people who value every moment, who understand that how we spend our time is how we spend our lives. She spoke for 5 minutes, explaining the social media strategy, the storytelling approach, the community building that had tripled Elite's engagement. When she finished, the applause was louder, more genuine. People approached after, asking questions, requesting her contact information. Alexander stayed close, his hand occasionally brushing her back, grounding her. When the formal presentations ended, he leaned down and whispered, "You were perfect." I was nervous. Nobody could tell. A journalist from Vogue approached. "Miss Chen, your work is fascinating. How did you develop this approach to luxury marketing?" "I'm not part of the luxury world," Mara said honestly. "I think that's my advantage. I see these products from the outside. I understand what they mean to people who save for years to afford them. I tell those stories because those are the stories that matter." "And Mr. Rothschild, how did you find someone with such a unique perspective?" Alexander smiled. She answered a job listing. "Best hiring decision I ever made." "Is your relationship purely professional?" the journalist asked, her eyes flicking between them. Mara froze. Alexander's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Mara is an invaluable part of Elite Watches," he said carefully. "She's transformed our brand. As for our relationship, I'd say we're colleagues who became friends." The journalist smiled knowingly. "Of course, thank you both." As she walked away, Mara exhaled. That was close. "Would it be so terrible if people knew?" Alexander asked. "Knew what? We're not dating, we're not anything." "Aren't we?" Before Mara could answer, Patricia appeared. "Alexander, the board wants photos. Mara, you should be in them." The next hour was a blur of photographs and conversations. Mara smiled until her cheeks ached, answered questions until her throat was dry. Through it all, Alexander stayed near, his presence a constant comfort. When the event finally wound down, they found themselves alone in a quiet corner of the gallery. The crowd had thinned. Waiters were clearing glasses. "Come back to my place," Alexander said. "Not for anything inappropriate. I just don't want a night to end yet." Mara knew she should say no. She should go home, put distance between them, remember all the reasons this could not work. Instead, she said, "Okay." Alexander's penthouse was everything Mara expected, and nothing she was prepared for. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Manhattan at night. Furniture that probably cost more than she made in a year. Art on the walls that looked suspiciously like original pieces from artists she studied in community college. "Drink?" Alexander asked, moving to the bar. "Water is fine." He poured 2 glasses of water and joined her by the windows. They stood side by side, looking out at the glittering city. "I grew up down there," Mara said, pointing vaguely toward Queens. "Used to take the subway into Manhattan for school field trips. I'd look up at buildings like this and wonder what it felt like to live in the sky. It seemed impossible, a fantasy. And now I'm here and it still feels impossible." Alexander set his glass down and turned to face her. "Nothing about this is impossible. We're just 2 people who like talking to each other. Everything else is just details." Big details. Your penthouse probably costs more per month than I make in a year. So what? Money is just numbers. It doesn't determine worth. Easy to say when you have it. You're right, I'm sorry. That was insensitive. Mara turned to him. I'm not trying to make this difficult. I'm trying to be realistic. We live in different worlds. Tonight was amazing, but it was also overwhelming. Your board members, the journalists, even your staff, they all look at me like I'm an intruder, someone who doesn't belong. You belong anywhere you want to be. Anyone who thinks otherwise doesn't matter. That's nice in theory, but in practice, I'm still the girl from Queens and you're still the billionaire. That doesn't just disappear because we like each other. Alexander moved closer, his hand coming up to cup her face. I don't care where you're from, I care who you are. And who you are is someone extraordinary, someone I can't stop thinking about, someone I want to know in every possible way. Alexander, she breathed. He kissed her. Soft at first, tentative, giving her room to pull away. She didn't. She leaned into him, her hands sliding up to his shoulders, kissing him back with all the confused longing she had been suppressing for weeks. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. Stay tonight. Not for anything physical, just stay. Let's watch terrible movies and talk until sunrise. I want more time with you. Mara knew she was making a mistake, knew this would complicate everything. But standing in his arms, feeling wanted and valued and seen, she could not bring herself to care. Okay, she whispered, I'll stay. They did watch terrible movies. Alexander made popcorn in his ridiculous gourmet kitchen. They sat on his couch, her feet tucked under her, his arm around her shoulders. They talked through the movies, making fun of plot holes and bad dialogue. It was easy and comfortable and perfect. Around 3 a.m., Mara fell asleep with her head on his shoulder. Alexander stayed still, not wanting to wake her, watching her breathe. In the morning light filtering through the windows, she looked peaceful, young, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with makeup or styling. He was in love with her, completely, irreversibly in love. It had happened gradually, then all at once. Every phone call, every conversation, every moment of her quick wit and kind heart. Now, with her asleep in his arms, he knew he would do anything to keep her in his life. When Mara woke, morning sun was streaming through the windows. She sat up, disoriented, until she remembered where she was. Alexander was in the kitchen making coffee. Morning, he said. Coffee. Please. She joined him, accepting the mug he handed her. I fell asleep, I'm sorry. Don't apologize, you were tired. How do you feel about breakfast? I should probably get home. Or you could stay. I make excellent pancakes. Mara looked at him, at his hopeful expression, at the way morning light caught in his dark hair. She thought about her empty apartment, about going back to her regular life and pretending last night did not happen. Pancakes sound good, she said. They spent the morning together. Alexander did make excellent pancakes. They ate at his dining table, talking about everything and nothing. Around noon, reality intruded. I have a board meeting at 2, Alexander said reluctantly. And you probably have work. I should review the social media metrics from last night's launch. About that, the numbers are incredible. We've already had 1,000 pre-orders for the Horizon collection. The social media engagement from the event alone doubled our usual metrics. That's amazing. It's all because of you. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Mara, I want this. Not just the professional success, I want you. I want dinners and movie nights and mornings like this. I know it's complicated. I know we have obstacles, but I think we're worth fighting for. Mara squeezed his hand. I want that too, I'm just scared. We'll figure it out together. Take things slow, no pressure. Just see where this goes. Okay, yes, let's try. The next 3 months were the happiest of Mara's life. She and Alexander saw each other several times a week. Sometimes he came to Queens, eating takeout in her tiny apartment, meeting her roommate, walking the unglamorous streets of her neighborhood. Sometimes she went to Manhattan, slowly becoming comfortable in his world of expensive restaurants and gallery openings. They kept their relationship quiet, not secret, but private. Mara still worked as Elite's social media manager, though they formalized her position and tripled her pay. She used the money to pay off her mother's medical debt, to go back to school part-time, to finally feel secure. Alexander was different with her than with anyone else. He was relaxed, funny, unguarded. He told her about the pressure of running the company, about the board members who questioned his decisions, about his fear of failing his father's legacy. She listened, offering perspective from outside his usual circle. "You're doing an incredible job," she told him one night as they lay in his bed, her head on his chest. "Your father would be proud." "How do you know?" "Because you care. Not just about profit margins and stock prices. You care about the employees, about the brand meaning something. That's what matters." He kissed the top of her head. "I love you." The words hung in the air. Mara froze. They had not said it yet, though it was obvious in every gesture, every look. "You don't have to say it back," Alexander continued. "I just wanted you to know I'm in love with you, Mara Chen, completely and utterly." She lifted her head, looking at him. "I love you too. I think I have for a while now. It's terrifying." "Why terrifying?" "Because losing this would destroy me." "You're not going to lose me. I'm not going anywhere." 6 months into their relationship, Alexander invited Mara to a charity gala. It was the first truly public event they would attend together as a couple. "Are you sure?" Mara asked. "Once we do this, everyone will know." "I want everyone to know. I'm tired of hiding how I feel about you. You're the best thing in my life. Why would I hide that? Your board won't approve. They'll think I'm a gold digger or that I'm using you." "Let them think what they want. I know the truth. You're with me despite my money, not because of it." The gala was held at a museum in Manhattan. Mara wore a dress that Alexander bought over her protests, something elegant and simple that made her feel beautiful. When they arrived together, cameras flashed. Journalists shouted questions. Alexander kept his hand on her back, guiding her through the crowd with easy confidence. Inside, they were immediately surrounded. Board members, business associates, society figures, all of them looking at Mara with various degrees of curiosity and judgment. "Alexander, who's your date?" One board member asked. "This is Mara Chen, my girlfriend and Elite's social media director." "Ah, the mysterious Mara. I've heard so much about your work." "Tell me, how does someone so young become involved in luxury marketing?" The question was polite but condescending. Mara smiled. "I answered a job listing. Turns out talent matters more than pedigree." The board member blinked, surprised by her directness. Alexander grinned. They made their way through the evening, a unit. When people were rude, Alexander shut them down. When Mara felt overwhelmed, he found quiet corners for them to catch their breath. By the end of the night, she realized she had enjoyed herself. Not because of the fancy venue or expensive wine, but because she was with him. "You did great," Alexander said as they left. "You handled those vultures perfectly. Your world is exhausting." "Then let's go back to yours, your apartment takeout and terrible television." "That sounds perfect." They went to Queens. Alexander took off his tuxedo jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and sprawled on her second-hand couch like he belonged there. Mara ordered Chinese food and curled up next to him. "I could do this every night," Alexander said. "Just this. You and me and no expectations. Your board would have a heart attack if they knew the billionaire CEO prefers Queens to Manhattan penthouses. My board doesn't understand what matters. You do. This does." He was right. Sitting in her tiny apartment, eating cheap takeout, Mara felt happier than she had at the gala. This was real. This was them without the trappings and expectations. "Move in with me," Alexander said suddenly. "What?" "Move in with me, not the penthouse, though you're welcome there too. I want to buy us a place. Something that's ours, not mine. A home." "Alexander, that's huge. We've only been together for 6 months. I know, but I also know I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to build a life with you. Why wait?" Mara sat up, looking at him. "Because people will say I'm using you. They'll say I'm after your money. I don't care what people say. Do you want this? Do you want us to build something together?" She thought about it, about waking up next to him every day, about not saying goodbye at the end of dates, about building a home, a life, a future. "Yes," she said, "I want this." They found a brownstone in Brooklyn. Not a penthouse, not a mansion, just a beautiful old building with good light and a backyard. Alexander bought it, then immediately put both their names on the deed. "It's ours," he insisted when Mara protested. "Equal partners." They spent a month furnishing it together. Mara insisted on contributing, using her savings to buy furniture and decorations. Alexander let her, understanding she needed to feel like an equal contributor. When they finally moved in, Mara stood in the living room and cried, "This is ours, an actual home." Alexander pulled her close. "The first of many things that will be ours." A year into their relationship, Elite Watches held its annual shareholder meeting. Alexander stood at the podium, presenting record growth. The company had tripled in value since Mara started. Their social media presence was the strongest in the luxury industry. Sales were through the roof. "This success is due to many factors," Alexander said. "But primarily, it's due to one person who transformed how the world sees Elite Watches. Mara Chen took our brand from exclusive to accessible, from cold to human. She's not just our social media director. She's the heart of this company. And I'm proud to announce that as of today, she's also a partner in Elite Watches, with full equity stake and a seat on the board." The shareholders erupted in surprise and applause. Mara, sitting in the front row, looked at Alexander in shock. He had not told her about this. After the meeting, she cornered him. "What did you just do?" "I made you a partner. You've earned it. The company's success is as much yours as mine." "Alexander, that's millions of dollars in equity. You can't just give me that." "I'm not giving you anything. You earned it. Every dollar of growth, every new customer, every positive brand impression is because of your work. You deserve to share in that success. The board will think I manipulated you into this." The board voted unanimously to approve it. "They see what you've done for the company. This isn't charity or favoritism. This is business." Mara sat down, overwhelmed. "I went from almost homeless to a partner in a billion-dollar company in 2 years. How is this my life?" Alexander knelt in front of her. "This is your life because you're talented and hardworking and brilliant. You transformed my company. You transformed me. You deserve every good thing that happens." She kissed him, pouring all her gratitude and love into it. "Thank you for believing in me when nobody else did. Always." 2 years after they met, Alexander proposed. Not at a fancy restaurant or during a grand gesture. He proposed in their Brooklyn brownstone on a random Tuesday evening. They were cooking dinner together, arguing good-naturedly about whether to add more garlic to the pasta sauce. "You're wrong," Myra said. "More garlic is always better." "You're going to regret that opinion," Alexander replied, adding another clove anyway. Then he turned off the stove, got down on one knee and pulled a small box from his pocket. "Mara Chen, will you marry me?" She stared at him, sauce-covered spoon still in her hand. "Are you serious right now? Completely serious. I love you. I want to spend my life with you. I want to argue about garlic amounts for the next 60 years. Marry me." The ring was simple, elegant, not ostentatious, not flashy, just perfect. "Yes," she said, dropping the spoon. "Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss. When they broke apart, both were crying and laughing. "I was so nervous," Alexander admitted. "What if you said no?" "I would never say no to you. You're stuck with me. That's all I've ever wanted." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at their brownstone. Just family and close friends. Mara's parents, who had been skeptical of Alexander at first, gave their blessing after seeing how he treated their daughter. Alexander's mother, who had been equally skeptical of Mara, warmed when she saw how happy her son was. "You're good for him," his mother told Mara before the ceremony. "He was lost after his father died, just going through the motions. You brought him back to life." "He did the same for me," Mara replied. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They wrote their own vows. Alexander promised to always listen, to value her perspective, to build a life based on partnership and respect. Mara promised to challenge him, to keep him grounded, to love him in all his imperfect humanity. When they kissed as husband and wife, their small gathering erupted in applause. Mara looked at Alexander, at the man who had started as a voice on the phone and became everything, and felt complete. 3 years after their wedding, Mara sat in their backyard watching their daughter play. Emma was 2 years old, all energy and curiosity. She had Alexander's dark hair and Mara's quick smile. Alexander came outside carrying lemonade. "She's going to destroy that flower bed. Probably. Let her explore." He sat next to Mara, handing her a glass. "I got the numbers from last quarter. Elite Watches is now the fastest-growing luxury brand in North America. That's incredible. You're incredible. 5 years ago, you were an anonymous freelancer. Now you're running social media strategy for 8 luxury brands, sitting on 3 corporate boards and teaching marketing at NYU. And changing diapers and arguing with a toddler about vegetables. Don't forget the glamorous parts," Alexander laughed. "I love our life." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Emma dig in the garden with serious concentration. Mara thought about the job listing she had answered 5 years ago, desperate and broke and scared. She thought about the voice on the phone that became the love of her life. She thought about all the moments between then and now, the building of trust and love and partnership. "What are you thinking about?" Alexander asked. "How grateful I am for that job listing. For your willingness to hire someone anonymous, for every Thursday phone call, for all of it. I'm the grateful one. You saved my company and my life. You gave me purpose and love and Emma. You gave me everything." Mara leaned against him. "We gave each other everything." Emma toddled over, covered in dirt and beaming. "Look, Mama, I found a worm." Mara looked at her daughter, then at Alexander, then at the backyard of their brownstone in Brooklyn. This life, This beautiful ordinary life full of dirt and lemonade and love was better than any fantasy. "That's a great worm, sweetheart," she said, pulling Emma into her lap despite the dirt. "Tell me all about it." As Emma chattered about her discovery, Alexander's arm around both of them, Mara felt the certainty of complete happiness. She had started with nothing and built everything. Not because of Alexander's money or connections, but because of partnership and work and love. The voice behind the brand had become so much more. She had become a partner, a wife, a mother. She had become exactly who she was meant to be, standing beside someone who saw her worth from the very beginning. And that was the best story she could have ever written. Years continued to unfold with that same beautiful ordinary magic. Elite watches expanded internationally, with Mara's storytelling approach becoming the industry standard. Other luxury brands hired her as a consultant. She wrote a book about authentic marketing that became required reading at business schools. But her favorite accomplishment was always the family she and Alexander built together. They had 2 more children, a son named James and another daughter named Sophie. The brownstone in Brooklyn was filled with laughter and chaos and love. Alexander scaled back his hours at Elite, promoting trusted executives and transitioning into a chairman role that gave him more time at home. Mara continued teaching and consulting, but always on her own terms, never sacrificing family for career. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they returned to the small Italian restaurant in Greenwich Village where they had their first date. The same checkered tablecloths, the same candles in wine bottles. They sat at the same corner table. "Do you remember what you said to me that night?" Alexander asked. "I said a lot of things." "You said we lived in different worlds, that it couldn't work." Mara smiled. "I was wrong. We don't live in different worlds. We built our own world together. Best thing I ever did was put that anonymous job listing online. Best thing I ever did was answer it." Alexander raised his glass. "To anonymous voices that become everything." "To voices that become love stories," Mara corrected, clinking her glass against his. They ate pasta and talked about their children, their work, their dreams for the future. After dinner, they walked through Greenwich Village hand in hand, just like they had a decade earlier. The city had changed. They had changed, but the feeling between them remained constant and true. "I love you," Alexander said as they walked, "more now than ever." "I love you too. Thank you for seeing me when I was just a voice behind a brand. Thank you for being the voice that changed everything." They walked home through the city lights, 2 people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful. The girl from Queens and the billionaire CEO, now just partners navigating life together with love and respect and unwavering commitment. It was a simple story, really. Boy posts job listing. Girl answers. Both find something neither knew they were looking for. But simple stories are often the most profound, the most true, the most worth telling. And this story, their story, was one for the ages. Not because of money or success or dramatic twists, but because of something far more valuable. 2 people choosing each other every single day, building a life of partnership and respect and enduring love. The voice behind the brand became the voice Alexander heard every morning and every night, the voice that told their children bedtime stories, the voice that challenged him and supported him and loved him unconditionally. And Mara, who had started with $47 and desperation, found wealth beyond measure in the life they created together. Some love stories begin with grand gestures. Theirs began with a job listing and a phone call. And that was perfect, because the best love stories are not about how they begin, but about how they endure, grow, and transform into something neither person could have imagined alone. In the end, they proved that different worlds can merge, that anonymous voices can become beloved presences, and that sometimes the best things in life come from taking a chance on someone you have never met, whose worth you recognize not through appearances or credentials, but through the authenticity and heart they bring to everything they do. Their happily ever after was not an ending. It was a continuation, day after day, year after year, of choosing love, building partnership, and creating magic in the ordinary moments that make up a life well lived together.